can philosophy contribute to science? The relationship between philosophy and science is often a complicated one.
I feel bad for you.
I don't think about you at all.
Richard Feynman expressed it like this. Philosophy of science is as useful to scientists as ornithology is to birds. Absolute banger quote. But in many cases, a video that starts out with a spicy take like this immediately backpedals and adds nuance, and finally arrives at a somewhat wishy-washy position. Yes, philosophy totally contributes to science, and we need more interdisciplinary dialogue, yada yada yada. But I'm not gonna do this here. Because I think that Feynman was 100% correct. The first reason is quite simple. Philosophy of science is not for scientists, it's about scientists. And that's exactly why I think the ornithology thing is so fitting. It's not for birds, it's for people interested in birds. Now, that does not mean that philosophy of science or ornithology isn't useful at all. It's just not useful for scientists or birds. But there's plenty of other people who find it interesting and who want to engage with it, and that's perfectly fine. Generally, let me emphasize that this entire video isn't intended as a put-down, but I'm just trying to be serious and honest. The second reason is that philosophy means abstracting a language game from our perception of reality and then having fun with that, according to assumed rules. You could say that philosophy is like mathematics in the sense that both are just concerned with abstract, fictional systems. The only difference is that mathematicians are aware of it. Unfortunately, a lot of the philosophical models of the world are a bit simplistic and not very sophisticated, while the mathematical models are quite the opposite. This seems to be the main explanation between what Eugene Wigner called the unreasonable effectiveness of mathematics and what Steven Weinberg called the unreasonable ineffectiveness of philosophy. Let me give you some concrete examples for this. The concept of scientific realism deals with how scientific theories relate to reality. In simple words, is science an accurate description of reality? Do atoms and quarks or space and time really exist, or are they just an invention? In the end, it can't be totally made up because it works too well. But also it can't be a completely accurate description because science constantly evolves and old theories are replaced by new, and sometimes we have several competing theories that all work. So the initial either-or question is too simplistic and isn't really getting us anywhere. So maybe we need a more refined framework, but there seems to be very little effort going in this direction. Or Karl Popper's big thing, the falsification of theories. Basically, it must be possible to prove a theory wrong, to falsify it, for it to be considered scientific in the first place. And according to Popper, once a theory is proven wrong, it is discarded and replaced with a new one. The classic example for this is the theory that all swans are white, which used to be true, until people found out that there are also black swans in Australia. So the white swan theory had been falsified and had to be discarded. But to a scientist, this isn't a very sophisticated way to look at things. Instead, scientists would argue that the white swan theory is in fact highly successful, because it works for over 90% of the world, and we also know where it does not apply. And that's why in science we generally do not discard the theories that have proven themselves. Almost all industries and technologies are based on theories that have been disproven and are technically wrong. But they're still excellent approximations that work perfectly well for everyday life. So generally in science we have a much more nuanced view than just true or false. Another example is the demarcation problem. The question how we can decide what is science and what isn't. This is arguably the most fundamental question in all of philosophy of science, and yet there isn't a really settled answer for it, nor is there a lot of progress. Most approaches simply try to draw a clear distinguishing line between science and non-science. But what if that distinction is way more complicated than that? What if this isn't a black or white question at all? What if the boundary is gradual? What if it is fractal? what if it is dynamic? And to me, the most annoying argument is the claim that if there is no clear separating line between two categories, neither category exists in the first place. This encapsulates all of my frustrations with philosophy. It's just a simplistic word game on abstract categories, and it does not acknowledge that reality can be much more complicated than that. What are the counter-arguments to Feynman's quotes? Frankly, there's a lot of bad ones, so let's not waste our time here and go straight to the good ones. Daniel Dennett put it like this: there is no such thing as philosophy-free science. There is only science whose philosophical baggage is taken on board without examination. And while I find this convincing, to a degree, the biggest weakness of this argument is that it's often based on extensive overreach. For example, a linguist could go to a conference on molecular biology and could say, yeah, all very interesting, but what is your entire field based on? Language and words. Everything is just linguistics. You're welcome. Or a physicist could say to a philosopher, yeah, but what is really happening while you are thinking and arguing? Electrical signals run through your brain, your body registers photons and sound waves, etc. Everything is just physics. You're welcome. And technically, all of this is correct, but if you loosen up a definition so much that it includes basically anything, it just stops being useful. Philosophy likes to claim everything where people either think or ask specific questions, which includes basically all of human interest. But scientists can very easily think about their problems without cracking open a philosophy book. In fact, it was exactly Feynman's point that this doesn't really help. So when we don't inflate what counts as philosophy, when we don't talk about some general notion of philosophy, but the field of philosophy, very little of that is actually useful for science. Philosopher Tim Maudlin also had an answer to Feynman that I liked, at least initially. Ornithology would in fact be very useful to birds, if birds could consult the ornithologists and understand the advice. And like I said, initially this sounded like a banger. But the more you think about it, the more you realize it does not really hold a lot of water. Because what exactly could ornithologists tell the birds? How they sound? Where they breed? What they eat? Birds know that. It's what they do. Being a bird is kind of their core competency. Sure, ornithologists could tell birds something that some other birds do in a superior way. Fair game, but the birds could also learn it directly from the other birds. The ornithologist is just the middleman. And that's why I agree with Feynman that philosophy of science is as useful to scientists as ornithology is to birds. Just one more thing though. You know how it is with quotes on the internet. They are often misattributed or even made up. So did Feynman ever actually say that? Most likely not, no. Would he have agreed with it though? Yeah, he would have loved it, and that's why the attribution works so well. I'm Chris, and this is Physics But Awesome. At the moment, I mostly do stuff on quantum computing, quantum mechanics and cosmology, so if you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more.